All right, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the complex, highly technical, and honestly pretty messy world of printmaking. You might look at a stunning print hanging in a gallery and just see a simple image, right? But the reality of how it actually got there, it is an incredibly intense physical process. Seriously, what happens when you combine 6,000 pounds of pressure with toxic chemistry and super delicate paper? Well, that question alone really reveals the high stakes here. We are talking about a medium that is so much more than just making simple stamps. It is this wild, precise calibration of heavy machinery, hardcore material science, and of course, artistic vision. Just to keep us focused, here's our roadmap through this potentially overwhelming blend of physics, chemistry, and art. We'll hit the printmaking universe, check out the mechanics at the press, dive into the chemistry of etching, explore pushing creative boundaries, and finally go over surviving the print shop.
Okay, Section 1, the printmaking universe, setting the foundation.
Before an artist can start bending the rules, they really have to master a massive array of historical and technical methods. In fact, just looking at the actual university printmaking syllabus from Andhra Pradesh brilliantly illustrates this. The foundational coursework is incredibly rigorous, and it totally sets the stage for everything we're about to discuss today. So these foundational methods basically break down into a few distinct universes. You've got relief printing, think linocuts and woodcuts, where you literally carve away what you don't want to print. Then there's Intaglio, which includes things like etching and dry point, where the ink actually sits way down below the surface inside the grooves. Add to that lithography using processed stones, screen printing, and monotypes. These are the primary major methods, and every single one requires a completely unique approach to carving, inking, and finally getting that image onto paper. Moving right along to Section 2, Mechanics of the Press, the Precision Instrument. 6,000. That is the amount of pressure, in pounds per square inch, that an etching press can exert. I mean, think about that. That's a massive amount of brute mechanical force. If you just blindly crank down those handles without knowing exactly what you're doing, you will absolutely crush your delicate paper fibers, or even worse, literally destroy a solid copper plate. But here's the thing, all that extreme pressure means absolutely nothing without healthy felts, or blankets. Think of brand new, springy, lofty fibers as this crucial cushion. They physically push that dampened paper deep into the microscopic, ink-filled grooves of the plate. On the flip side, worn, flattened, or glazed fibers, they completely lose their resilience. They just sort of bridge right over those grooves, which gives you really weak, patchy prints. So the absolute crucial starting point is treating your press like the mechanical system it is, beginning with the health of your felts. So, to avoid completely crushing your materials with that 6,000 psi, master printmakers rely on a very systematic calibration called the KISS method. It goes like this. First, you tighten the pressure handles fully just to make sure the roller is perfectly parallel. Second, you loosen those handles equally. Third, you do a test run with an uninked plate and a few paper scraps on the edges. And finally, you tweak and adjust until the embossment is perfectly even on both sides. This gives you your exact baseline pressure, the KISS position, where the roller is making just enough contact to work like magic. And hey, it's not just the press, it's the paper too. Moisture control here is an exact science. See, rigid, dry paper totally fails to pick up fine details because it fights the shape of the plate. But different papers need wildly different treatments. For instance, heavy cotton rag needs 2 to 4 solid hours of blotter dampening, whereas super delicate Japanese gampi just needs a light spray misting. And Somerset paper, that requires a 30 to 60 second immersion in water. These super specific soaking techniques soften the sizing in the paper, making those fibers docile and pliable so they can physically wrap around every single microscopic detail under all that pressure. Now, even if you have perfect pressure in perfectly damp paper, you can still totally ruin a giant print with one simple tension error, ending up with massive, frustrating creases right in the margins. Printmaker Michelle Hughes actually hit the nail on the head. She knows that simply holding the paper up off the inked surface until the very last minute prevents slippage and movement. It's brilliant. Master printmakers rely on this incredibly practical 45-degree angle technique. You just hold the trailing edge of the paper up so it only makes contact a split second before the heavy roller's pressure wave hits it. That keeps the tension perfectly tight. All right, Section 3, the chemistry of etching beyond the mechanics. We're moving from the physical mechanics and to the intense chemical reactions needed to bite an image into solid copper. Traditionally, etching relied on some really nasty stuff, highly toxic, hazardous fumes, and corrosive acids like nitric acid. But thankfully, we're seeing this massive modern shift toward non-toxic alternatives, like the Edinburgh etch, which uses saline sulfate.
And the best part, not only is it way safer for everyone in the studio, but it actually gives you a cleaner, sharper, more precise vertical bite into the metal, completely avoiding that dangerous undercutting you get with traditional acid baths. Now, once your plate is chemically etched and inked up, wiping that ink off properly is honestly an absolute art form of touch and sight. Master printmakers use what's called a raking light diagnostic. You position a single light source completely parallel to the plate, and you look at it from a really low opposite angle. If you wiped it correctly, you'll see the subtle, even sheen across the metal. That's the delicate plate tone. But if you overwipe it, the surface looks completely matte, which means you've accidentally pulled ink right out of those shallow grooves and lost all your fine details. That raking light is literally the secret to knowing exactly when to stop wiping. Which brings us to Section 4, Pushing Creative Boundaries, the Art of Viscosity. Now that we understand these really strict physical and chemical rules, let's explore how contemporary artists totally manipulate them to get these vibrant, complex results. Take color viscosity etching, for example. This is a highly technical mid-20th century method developed at Atelier 17 by innovators like Stanley William Hayter and Krishna Reddy. Basically, it uses ink rollers of different densities and varying plate levels to print multiple colors all in a single pass through the press. By exploiting the simple chemical truth that oily inks naturally reject tacky inks, artists can pull off these stunning multicolor prints without the absolute nightmare of trying to perfectly align multiple different plates on wet paper. It is a real game changer. Artist Tyrus Clutter brilliantly uses this exact viscosity technique to explore the concept of a palimpsest. That's the idea of layering, where lost or ancient texts reemerge to commingle with new imagery. He literally layers Judeo-Christian scriptural texts directly into the architectural floor plans of cathedrals. Because of the varying levels carved into the copper plate and those chemically separated inks we were just talking about, the words become totally inseparable from the floor plans. It creates this physical and visual palimpsest that weaves multiple foundations together into one single beautiful impression. And finally, Section 5, Surviving the Print Shop, High-Stakes Safety. As you can see, this is a beautiful but legitimately hazardous environment, so let's look at the intense safety protocols you need just to operate in this space. First up, mechanical hazards. You've got to tie back long hair and take off any jewelry or loose clothing. Never force the press beds or adjust them without using the micrometer dials. You've got to beware of rotating lithography press handles and absolutely never, ever yank or pull items that are pinned under the heavy roller. These rapid-fire mechanical rules are 100% non-negotiable. Why? Because an etching press exerting thousands of pounds of pressure is simply not going to stop for a loose sleeve or a misplaced finger. Then, of course, there's the chemical risk. This brings us to the ultimate emergency protocol, the 15-minute water flush. If you happen to suffer a chemical spill, a caustic haze remover burn, or an acid splash, your immediate critical response is to flood the affected skin or eyes with water for 15 straight minutes. There is absolutely no time to hesitate here. And it's not just about your own personal safety, it's environmental too. Chemical disposal is strictly regulated in a print shop. Because printmaking involves heavy metals, corrosives, and intense solvents, you never ever pour any solvent down the drain. You use designated, clearly labeled waste containers, you treat any acid spills with soda ash before bagging them up, and you rigorously separate contaminated trash that has heavy metals like copper sulfate or ferrochloride. The ecological safety and your personal safety in the studio depends entirely on following these strict methods to the letter. So, to wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final thought. The next time you look at a printed image, are you just going to see a picture? Or will you see the 6,000 pounds of pressure, the perfectly resilient felts, the precise paper calibration, and the wild chemical alchemy behind it? I really hope this has given you a profound new respect for the incredible science, the danger, and the raw skill hidden inside every single print.